same incense they have at the cathedral. So it will be joining us in that sort of sense and the sense of smell today. Follow me. It's a bit of a strange command when you think of it, isn't it? Because what does follow me mean? Where are we meant to be following Jesus to, and why? This final part of John's Gospel portrays an episode where the risen Jesus appears again to his disciples, affirming once more that he has truly been resurrected. If you read this passage closely, you might notice that it has an ever so slightly different feel from the rest of John's Gospel. And in fact, it is thought this concluding section was indeed written by someone other than John. It's not clear why this was done or who did it, but for whatever reason, we have been given the gift of these last few passages, and it is up to us to see what we can understand of it. There is much to read into the events that we have heard today. Why did Simon Peter want to go fishing? Was he still so overcome with grief that he just wanted the comfort of returning to his roots as a fisherman? Why did they stay out all night when they didn't catch anything? And why was Peter naked? It all seems very curious. In the morning, Jesus appears to the disciples who are in the boat one final time. True to form, they didn't recognize him at first. It was only after Jesus had shown the men his true self by helping them catch fish did they realize who he was. For Peter, this is his chance to make his peace for the denial of Jesus 3 times as the cock crowed on that faithful day of Jesus' crucifixion. As such, he quickly dresses himself and runs through the water towards his betrayed master. Whatever the reason was that Peter was naked in the boat, he was obviously too ashamed to be naked in front of Jesus. And I find this quite ironic because it was the naked Jesus who hung on the cross, and he had no choice but to be exposed in front of his friends and family and all who walked past him. However, Peter still felt that he had to cover himself up. It's a pointless exercise, really, because it's quite clear that Jesus can see through into Peter's heart no matter how many layers of clothing he may have tried to put on. The breakfast on the beach is sometimes described as a form of a modified Eucharist. But this time there are some substantial differences. When we read about the Last Supper, it is evening, this time it's morning. And perhaps this is an indication that things this time are at the beginning and not at the end. Instead of the Last Supper, this is the first breakfast, perhaps the start of a new world. Secondly, there is fish instead of wine, maybe a reminder that Jesus' blood has now been spilt on the cross, and so for now, there was none to consume. And thirdly, at the end of the meal, the order is not to do this in remembrance of me, like it was at the Last Supper, but instead it's follow me. The time for pondering, remembering, and reflecting had ended, and now it is time for action. And so it was that Jesus offered Peter a chance to reconcile for his denial of Jesus on the morning of the crucifixion. 3 times Peter is asked if he loves Jesus. How could Peter possibly get it wrong this time? In Greek, unlike English, there are multiple different words for various forms of love. Some examples include eros, the sexual passion type love, or mania, the type of love that is based on obsession. Then there is philia, which is a brotherly, sisterly love, which can be between siblings or maybe between 2 friends. But most importantly, there is agape love, a love that extends beyond just 2 people, but which is so powerful that it reaches out into the world far beyond the 2 individuals. It is the type of love that is everlasting, sacrificing, free and unconditional. In 1 Timothy, Paul describes agape love as love which comes out of a pure heart, of good conscience, and of faith unfeigned. Agape love, Paul says, is the final commandment. And so it is this word, agape, that Jesus uses when he asks Peter if he loved him. Jesus was asking Peter if his love was enough to sacrifice himself for others, to put his needs and desires aside, and to reach out into the world for which Jesus died. And Peter replied that he did, except he replied using the word phileo, brotherly love. To be fair, Peter would have been unlikely to have been completely fluent in Greek, so it is quite possible that this error of reply was purely due to his lack of understanding of the intricacies of the language. But nevertheless, whether he realised it or not, Peter was not able to reflect back to Jesus the type of love that Jesus was offering him. Jesus repeats the question a second time, and Peter makes the same mistake. On the third time of questioning, Jesus alters his question. He understands Peter's limit. He asks Peter if he loves him for the third time using the word phileo. It seems from Peter's response that he never truly understood what he had just done. Whatever the reasons might have been for the final part of John's Gospel being written, and regardless of who actually wrote it, I feel that this interaction between Jesus and Peter is a pivotal moment for us to contemplate. We have the benefit of insight, so we know that Jesus asks more from us than just brotherly or sisterly love. Jesus wants us to love in a way that makes the world a better place, where the outcasts are respected and the poor are welcomed into our houses. Jesus wants us to access a love which throws the rules out of the window. We are asked to offer a love that sacrifices everything, just like Jesus did for us on the cross. It seems like a big ask, way too big, something that we will never be able to achieve. And like Peter, we are fallible and we misunderstand. We get things wrong, we use the incorrect sort of love, and we deny Jesus too, just like Peter. However, there is quite literally a saving grace. Jesus does not give up on Peter, nor does he get angry or despondent or frustrated. Jesus offers one last instruction that not even Peter could misunderstand. Follow me. That's all. No guide as to where or why or when or how, because none of that is actually important. If we follow Jesus, despite making mistakes along the way, we will one day understand the full concept of agape love, when we, through our faith and by the grace of our loving Lord, enter into his kingdom, which he has prepared for us by dying on the cross. And for that, we are eternally grateful. Amen.